coexistence over time. Okay. Also because we have probabilities that depend on that resources. So if we have all the resources similar, it's like all the genotypes have the same probabilities to survive and to reproduce.
So those are 1,000 times that, right?
Yes.
Is that enough, do you think, to see the, it might be the transient?
Yeah, well, that is what Mercedes asked me the other time. Because
but if you have, probably you have the model. I see this, but you have the model with equations, right? Like ODEs.
Yes.
So maybe you
it's
can.
Stable.
Stable.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know here because there is stochasticity that perhaps can disequilibrate the system. I don't know. I didn't make it for more than 100 iterations.
Mm-hmm.
So then, if we analyze the number of genotypes, that what I was saying about that, is that after a while we can observe the maximum coexistence. And also the evenness is very high. Evenness is a measure of how equal is the population, or in general how equal is the community in terms of abundance. So if we have an index of evenness close to 1, it means that the abundance of different genotypes are similar when in relation to the others.
So all types are in there. So all types are in there.
Yes, yes. You have the maximum coexistence. And then
so the maximum is equal to the maximum, the potential maximum?
Yes.
N is equal to?
N in this case is 5, and then if 5 times 4 is 20. We did this experiment increasing N and see what happened with type of response. In general, when you increase like N equals 10, so the number of possible genotypes is 19, you don't see the like a flat line, but the values is very close to the maximum. Okay. And then the total abundance. Well, perhaps here the more interesting is that the times at which there is the regimen is later than the other changes, like in the number of genotypes or in the resources. And also it's interesting because in the experiments we don't see this abrupt increase in the population. So one of the assumptions of our model is that the energy is constant, so perhaps that is the reason why we observe this increase in the population, because we maintain the energy, but in the experimental analysis they don't maintain the energy constant. And then we observe the cycles. So for this is perhaps very important to try to understand the change from one transition to another. So we analyze the number of different components of cycles. Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what the cycles mean?
Yeah, I'm going to explain now.
Okay.
Yes. So for example, we have this figure, this one is the sum of all possible cycles, of all possible components. Okay. So then if we analyze components by components, we can see that two components like that, the model. You have at the beginning a lot of cycles of that components, but perhaps they are very unstable. So they are not enough to explain the emergence of diversity. And then we have cycle of 3 components, 4 and 5, because it's the maximum, considering that we have n equal 5. So here we can see that cycles of 5 components are not very common at the beginning of the system, but then there is a very big increase in that number. So we can think that, okay, it is necessary to have cycles of 5 components, but even at the beginning we can have, and it's not enough. Yeah?
What's the scale? Is that
It's a proportion.
so out of all the possible 5 component cycles that could exist, that's how many that do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. So 1, it means that you have all possible cycles of 5 components in the system.
It looks like all of the different sizes are up about the same place.
Yes. Yes. But I think that this the biggest component cycle is determined. How can I say? Is the most important to the increasing the other ones. Yeah, because why? We have first, in this case, we are creating all of the resources. So, for example, if we consider only a cycle of 4 components, what happens if one of these mutants mutates to the other resource that is not in this cycle? So perhaps that resource is more abundant in the system, so the other genotype is going to be with advantage in relation to the others. So to maintain the fitness in equal conditions for all, it is necessary to create this type of cycles because the abundance of the different resources are the same also. Is clear the idea? Okay. So, yeah, we can see that we need, even in the resource abundance evenness in the abundance of the resources. Also, we need to have this type of cycles in which you are maintaining the creation of all resources all the time.
So I see that the plots, they're kind of like very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any idea for that? Look like they have the same dynamics, and so that raises a question like how the 5 component cycle is formed. Is it formed from a 4 component cycle, or is it independent of that one?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that both.
Both.
Yeah, because for example here you can have here, but you can have this cycle for example. So that is possible. So in this case you are counting 4 components and 5. So are not exclude one case for that.
Yeah, I get the case.
So in this case, I think that you have like a very connected network. In this case, when you have all possible cycles, you have all the network connected.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Still, I don't quite understand what happens. Why does that transition happen?
Well, for me it's also hard to understand. Yeah, I think that the most, like I said, it's important to have the evenness in the resource concentration, because I'm going to come back to this one. It's fluctuating all the time, but you can see that while the time is passed, the resource abundance are close to be equalized. So
it wasn't clear to me whether that was a cause or effect. The
yeah.
result of that equal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like there is a feedback between genotype abundance and resource abundance and the structure of the system. Yeah. But perhaps, I don't know. I think that it is necessary to have the different components together to obtain the same result, to obtain this fragmented. Because if you, for example, start with if you start with 5 resources, very equal between them, and then between each other, and then you put genotypes that are in different abundance, you are not going to have coexistence. So it is necessary to have both, like similar abundance in the genotypes and also similar abundance in the resources. But to maintain the coexistence, also is necessary this type of structure in which you have the cycles maintaining all the things.
Have you perturbed the system when it's in equilibrium, like removing 30% of genotype?
No. But I think that
That
if
will
you do
change
that,
the-
yeah. Most
See.
probably, are you going to come back to periodic selection?
For a while, maybe.
Yeah.
So going back to the colored graph that shows the resource concentrations, this is kind of a leap, but this reminds me of a statistical problem that people are working on mixing rates in Markov chains.
Mhm.
Are you at all familiar with it's different literature?
Yeah.
But you can think about the transition of metabolites as
Mhm.
being a Markov process.
Mhm.
And there's this work going on in statistics where there are these nice asymptotic proofs where as long as you have a closed loop, nice things happen if you run the chain for long enough, right? So if you run the simulation, things happen after a while. But the amount of time it might take to get to that asymptotic condition depends on the mixing rate of the graph. And when I look at the charts you have there, to me it looks like early on, the mixing rate is fairly long. So
Mhm.
if you have a wave that propagates in the system, it can go for a long time before it's damped out. And then right around 400, there's this intense burst where it looks like the mixing rate is shortened.
Yes.
And then soon after that, you get basically to equilibrium, where
Yes.
I think the network is going to be fully connected.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So if you're looking for explanations for
Mhm.
the differences, you might look up mixing rates in Markov chains, because this is a pretty active area in statistics, and there may be
Mhm.
something where
Oh,
they explain that.
Yeah. Thank you.
A related thought is have you looked at the percentage of, I'm trying to figure out what the right plot would be. Something like what % of mutants survive in a new environment, right? It's possible for a mutation to be introduced and then die off pretty soon.
Mhm.
Looking at this, I would guess that up until time 400,
Mhm.
most mutants don't survive. So they get plopped into the environment, they try, and then they die out because the ecosystem can't sustain them. But around 400 and then definitely after 500, I would bet almost all mutants survive, because
Yes.
there's already a population of things like them.
Yes. Yes.
So
I think that perhaps what are you saying is related with this figure in which you measure the number of genotypes on the time. So you can see that perhaps here there is some emerge a lot of new genotypes, but then they decrease again because the system doesn't allow to maintain
Mhm.
that type of genotypes.
yeah, I guess the figure I'm suggesting is it's related to the derivative of
Mhm.
that plot.
Okay. Well, so continuing with that, we then analyze the parameters to see if the system maintains the same condition if we change the parameter. So in this, we plot both alpha that are related with probabilities of survival and reproduction. And we can see that there is a exponential relationship between the phase of survival and death if you change that parameters. And also that relation is constant even if we modify the n value. In this case, we maintain the mutation rate constant, so we only change the alpha values. But I think that the most interesting one is that, because it's related with, we try to understand the system. We have here different values of n, but the thing that I showed you is with 5. And here is the breakpoint time.